Darren, hit us with your discussion point of the week. We talked about it off the top a bit, but content, quality, or quantity.
Shit, that's a very confusing way of introducing the quality versus quantity chat, because I've seen a lot in my years of scrolling the internet of people talking about this topic of like how much content is too much content. Do you aim to do content that's quality, or do you aim to do content that's of mass quantity? And it's a great chat, and it's a great thought process, and I think it goes down to what your brand is, what it does, your resources, your purpose, all that stuff. But I just find it interesting because it has been in chats we've had at the NBL in recent times that's kind of just like, we pump out a lot of content, especially comparing it to what it was 4 years ago. We pump out a lot of content, and it's just like, what are the pros and cons of both?
Yeah,
and that's what I want to ask you. I want to talk to you about.
Let's go through it.
Yeah, it obviously is dependent, but I just think it's a very interesting one, and I think it's a very easy one to get in your head about.
Yeah. So where do you want to start with this? What sparked the conversation? Like, do you think your brain's more going towards that? The market is so flooded with content that people perhaps might need to start shifting back to quality because we're just seeing too much, or are you a fan of that, or does it depend on the brand?
I think it depends, but the main thing that sparked this thought was just like, I know, like even you and I, or like NBL, I know, like, you know, as a content creator, when you make a really good piece of content, and then once you execute that piece of content, it's done. You want it to get amplified on social media. You want it to get marketed, promoted properly. And then sometimes you're just like, I don't think it got the love it deserves, whether that's not enough time, like sitting on the feed without something updating it, or just like people are not seeing it for whatever reason. So that was the main motivation. Just like, if you produce a really good piece of content that you think is better than the majority of the stuff you do and it doesn't get love, you're like, well, how do we fix that?
Oh, so it's getting lost in the
lost in the feed.
The 10 other posts you're posting around those 3 days. Like
yes.
5 days.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think that's interesting. So I'm going to quickly rattle off some pros of posting a lot. What would you say is posting a lot, by the way?
No,
I know it's dependent.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I think what is posting a lot for something like the AFL, the NBL, compared to me sitting at home. Like, I'll tell you, for 2 Times Creative, Instagram, I aim for, like, say, it's probably honestly just 2 to 3 posts a week. LinkedIn, 2 posts a week. And TikTok and YouTube, probably just follow Instagram. I don't mind if I've got stuff to post and it's 3 or 4 times a week on Instagram for 2 Times Creative. But I definitely don't. I remember at the start of 2 Times Creative, I try to post every day. But I'm not in the camp for someone like us or a small business or personal brand that you need to post every day. In fact, I'm probably more of the opinion in this current state. That'll change in 6 months, as I told you off the top, but it probably does not hinder it, but you just get lost.
But it can.
To your point.
That's the thing. You can either, this is what we'll go through, but you can either post a lot and be consistent, be supposedly rewarded by the algorithm, or you can do that and just annoy your fans.
Yeah.
And be like, well, I don't know what the balance is.
Well, from a big company, so you'd be more closer to this. What is a lot for the NBL? Or we don't need to specifically call it the NBL, but a company like a sporting brand. Like
I think a sporting brand like the NBL, I think it's dependent on what is happening. Like, obviously news breaks and that's uncontrollable, and obviously it's game day or you're covering a game.
So peak season.
I'm not going to count game day in this in terms of like how many social clips you post of highlights. But like, I'd say we post anywhere from like, I feel like it's like 3 to 6 times a day.
A day?
I reckon
on
it would.
Instagram, we're talking about?
I reckon it would. I might be off. No, I reckon it's pretty...
2 to 6, we'll say.
2 to 6. So supposedly, like, I reckon it's obviously dependent on, like, we have so many shows, we have so many news, we've like people getting injured, all that stuff. It's dependent, but there's no way we post just once a day or twice a day. So it's very interesting. So that's why my mind is like, one, I know the audience probably doesn't see every single one of them, but that goes back to, is it too much? But does it get flooded enough, and then the audience just doesn't see what they want to see?
How do you find the balance? Like,
well, it's a great question. I don't know. I don't know.
That's the answer we're trying to find.
Yeah.
But
so I'm going to quickly
with the pros of posting.
So the pros of posting a lot: activity. If you're always active, supposedly the algorithm will reward you. You're always in the face of your customers, so people are like, "Hey, I've got no, what's the word? Excuse to not see this brand. So I know they're there. I know they exist. My mind will always tinker to like maybe purchasing off them or interacting with them. You're always in the face, which is a good. They have no choice but to see you. And once again, if you're consistent, in theory, the algorithm will reward you. So I think that's the pros.
Can I also... Sorry, finish that.
No, I was going to say, but half of that stuff, not half of it, but the algorithm stuff I'm not sure. It's kind of like a myth.
Well, maybe it's not, because there is also the argument that what you're posting, say, 2 to 6 times a day on the NBL Instagram, not you, but the team, that's not being shown. What's the stat? Because there's stats around that only get shown to like 15 or 20. Each post only gets shown to like 15 to 30% of your audience or something like that. That's not the right numbers, but there is a low number that I don't know how you prove that. I don't know what's factual. Maybe you need to get your meta friend in again, but it's not.
I think they're in with the clubs today, actually. Anyway.
Are they?
Yeah.
But let's say that, let's use that as truth. If that is only showing to 20% of your audience, that one post, then I could see to throw that into your pros of posting 6 times a day, because it's not actually reaching everyone. Fred from home isn't seeing the 6 posts.
Well, true. If
unless Fred's constantly
just clicking on the NBL account and refreshing as well. Like, if that's the case, then sure, it's good to post that amount of times. But some negatives of that, you might just flat out annoy people.
Yeah.
If you're a smaller business, I would say that probably is more likely. Maybe it depends what the quality of the content is.
Yeah.
So I'll just rattle off a few more negatives, and then you go.
Sorry,
no, that's all right.
Everything you're saying is my mind's gone. It's great.
Oh, sorry. This is pros of posting minimally.
Yeah, which you're saying that the cons of posting a lot. Same
Oh,
thing.
sorry. I've skipped I needed to bold that. Sorry. Yes. So the cons of
land the plane. What are we talking about?
Land the plane. So we're posting. We are now going back to the cons of posting a lot. So content gets lost. You annoy your fans, your followers, and then, as I mentioned before, the good content doesn't get the love it deserves. That's the main one, I reckon.
I think that's a very valid point, because particularly, it actually probably doesn't matter what type of brand it is, but if you get known for a lot of, say, shitter posts, your brand
takes a hit.
Yeah, integrity almost might take a hit from probably not so much your current audience, but new audience.
Yes.
Because they won't recognize you as the quality, this is what their brand represents. They'll recognize you as posting 7 memes a day. Like, that might be the case.
Yeah, I mean, your brand could definitely take a hit if that's the outcome of what you're doing day to day or week to week.
Yeah, it is. I've actually got a good example for this, Darren. So when I first started at Carlton in the first year or two, there was another video producer, Steve. He told me that one of his friends was a diehard big Carlton fan, but they unfollowed the Carlton account because they thought they posted too much crap. They just weren't interested in the amount of stuff they posted and just thought it was flooding their timeline.
Perfect example.
So it's very, I will say, for a big following, big brand like the NBL, the Carlton Football Club, it would be so difficult, because what are you going to change your whole strategy because of one person? Maybe you're gaining 5 for those one people dropping off. You'd really need, that's why they've got big teams internally. You'd really need people to dive into that.
Well, I think a big thing when I thought about this is you kind of have a responsibility as a league to cover this news and this stuff anyway.
Yeah.
So if you're not covering it, to me, you're not really doing your job that well. So if you're like, no, I'm limiting myself to 3 posts a day, and you just had a massive news day, and you're not posting on something you should make your fans aware of or giving love to some milestone, to me, you're not really doing your job and responsibility as the league. So that's where it becomes tricky.
I don't want to give you my final thoughts on before you hit the thing, but before you hit the last few points. But I do have my overall opinion on this is, if you've got something to post that's hitting your purpose. So if you've got things to post that's going back to your values and your purpose of what you're trying to do with your social posts, then do as many as you want. But if you are thinking we need to hit 3 posts a day, and you're forcing anything that you start to force content that's not going to provide your audience value or purpose, then that's the decision. So if you've got stuff to post it. If you're trying to force it, don't.
If you're forcing it to hit metrics or whatever, and it's not quality content, don't do it. But if you can literally post 6 times a day and your content's great, the interactions are great, people are literally seeing value in it, go for it.
I was going to say, this is so...
Go for 10.
This is so... Go for 15 a day. But case by case is so important as well, because maybe your job is to raise a certain Instagram following to 10K, and you've... Or 10, 20K, whatever it is, and you found that it helps posting by forcing stuff. You could make an argument to me that I'm going to force.
True.
If that's your job and purpose.
Exactly right. I think it's fascinating. I'm going to jump into posting minimally. That's the headline. Pros.
So this is posting less and it's more quality.
Posting less. Maybe that's once a day. Maybe that's once a week. Probably not advised once a week. I don't know, but it could be.
It could be.
Who knows?
Pros of this.
Thought out content. In theory, it's more thought out, and therefore the quality goes like this.
The value
Raise.
goes like this, probably.
Yes, quality and value
Yeah.
reaches the roof.
Could
in
have one
theory.
shit hot video a week that achieves everything you're trying to do as a business, and people love it. It's popping off.
Exactly.
It's yeah. You get it?
Yeah, I get it. I wrote it. No, I'm kidding. I didn't write what he was saying then. But no, this is a sort of a funny one, but people love mystery. If you don't post that much, and once you do post, people are like, I feel like it impacts more.
Yeah,
like, it's more
true.
it's more of a big deal when you post. It's like when big YouTubers, I think, like Peter McKinnon, I don't know how many the videos he releases a month or a week, but when he does post, people are like, not really like that. I'm not like that, but I think it's like, hey, that's cool. He's released another video, so I'll go look at it, and it has to be good because he's taken time with it. Similar effect to that. Do I have any more before Michael jumps in?
No, I just want to agree with it. I think
I'd say sorry. I was leading my final point.
Stuff the conversation.
I think more enjoyment is had potentially if you post less.
Yeah. Yep. I can't argue that one.
Go for it.
Your point before about the mystery or people posting every so often, I think is actually a great point, because sometimes you think, I love following this person because they barely post, or they'll post very little, but when you post, when they post, I want to see that because I know it's going to be good.
But then in saying that, like, this is why it's so hard, because if you convince me fully, then it's like, yeah, well, okay, I'll probably post less, but then it's like the followers might not see you, the algorithm probably might not reward you. You just don't know. Like, you literally don't know. If your sole aim is to, like, you have to build an audience, even if it's not about the engagement and all that, you're gonna have to make a living, then it makes sense to do whatever the algorithm kind of rewards.
But that's why you need to spend time identifying your purpose, our favorite word, purpose, identifying your audience, your purpose, and just your overall business plan and concept. Like, what is your social media there to do? Like, for us, it's to show. Instagram is like a form of our website, of our portfolio, showing us. But then there's also growing people that growing our following community of people that care about the creative side of things, and showcasing what actually goes into creating videos and photos, and showing us as it's a combined personal brand. You've just got to know what your purpose is.
It's a great word for this whole thing. It leads me nicely into the cons of posting less.
Yes.
Stunted growth. The algorithm may not reward you, as I said, and then your following and potential clients don't see enough of you, so you become forgetful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I think is a main one.
I think that I couldn't agree with that more. The people that are seen more often get more work for cases like someone like myself in that sort of industry. But you can't argue that sometimes people aren't hiring their best; they're just hiring the person that's seen the most.
Yeah, it goes back to, I was reading something the other day that the loudest person is the one that gets hired, or the loudest person is the one that gets promoted. Which it shouldn't be the way it is. In a lot of, it doesn't mean they're the smartest or the best for the job. It just means they're the loudest. And it goes back to another saying that I think is great for life and careers, is just like out of sight, out of mind. If people can't see you or hear you, you're probably not going to get thought of. As annoying as that is for introverted people, like myself, even though we're getting better at this type of stuff.
Yep.
But so often you probably just get forgotten about because you're the quiet man in the corner.
Yeah.
But I don't know. In saying that, I think people are smart enough these days to also recognize your talents if you are a bit quiet. It doesn't mean you have to be loud and annoying and whatever.
I think the loudness factor is sort of marketing at its bulk. Like, if you put yourself out there and you know how to show up and show yourself, then you're going to get rewards from it. But I too do agree, because I don't think people should try to change who they are as the extroverted person, loudest person in the room. If that's not who you are, it's just about finding ways to do it. Maybe you like writing, and you can just try to get a bit uncomfortable and post a photo of you when you write stuff. Like, there's ways of showing up without.
That's a great point, because I was going to say you can still find your way of being loud, and that might be never having a conversation in a day, but then the one conversation you do have a week, you make that a great conversation, and that person remembers you, and that person toots your horn.
It's
and
like
all
that
that
posting, one post a week or 1 month.
Yeah, or what you said, writing, or like anything. Like you probably can find a way to be loud. It doesn't mean you have to be verbally loud.
So what are your final thoughts to wrap this up? We'll go big sporting brand, and then someone like me, or a personal brand. Like, do you think, I'll go first, a big sporting brand? What's your final opinions on quality versus quality? Quality versus quantity?
Well, you got that right. No, I think after all, it's actually very hard to differentiate what you should do. Yeah. I think it's definitely a case by case. I will say, like, the whole being seen enough is very important. Like, you have to be seen, kind of thing. I think that's very important. But we're human. We question what we do, and sometimes that is questioning if we're annoying our audience rather than benefiting them. Yeah. So my final thoughts is, I don't really know. I can give you 3 pillars because I love pillars today.
I thought we both agreed on something to wrap it up nicely, that if there's something to post it. If there's nothing, if you're forcing it, don't. That would be, to me, how I'd wrap up a big brand. If you're doing your purpose, doesn't matter how many times you're doing that a day, just do it. If you're forcing it, then don't do it. Yeah,
I was going to say, I think the three things that I'd go back to in terms of like deciding
the same pillars from the start.
They're not the same pillars, but if to decide how much you should post is what you said: purpose, resources. Like if you've got enough people or it's just you, and just like I reckon chuck enjoyment in there.
Yeah.
Like if you're just burning yourself out and you want to hit 10 posts a day, I'd advise not to.
Yeah. So you don't think there's anything wrong if you've got things to post? Your last question: 2 to 5 times a day if you're a big brand.
No, not at all.
Yeah. And personal brand, or someone like us that we've got 703 followers, I think is our latest thing. What would you advise on post per week? Or maybe it's more of a question for me, but what would you advise? I think just staying active is the biggest key. I know that's very broad, and whatever you're going to say, I'm sitting on the fence, but I think staying active and consistent, whether that's once a day or once every 2 days, as long as your audience knows what to expect and they're your audience for a reason, it's fine. How many times would you like to see a post from Two Times Creative?
Once a day. I think like stay active is good.
Really?
If you have enough.
Falling behind.
But in saying that, that goes back to like why are you doing it, and if you have enough. Are you forcing it? Are you like, I'm going to film myself eating breakfast today, which doesn't go into our brand because I'm being active? Probably don't do that. And I know you have been working on that.
No, great answer, because my answer to that is yes, I would be forcing it to get a daily post.
Great.